Guys, what's up? Unrested here, back again with Osoroshii Saturday, which I usually start out by saying is the darkest tales and myths and legends from Asia. But today we're taking a step outside of Asia. I have been kind of on this whole true scary story tale type thing, and today, to keep it going and making sure that I give you stuff that at least I myself have heard, I'm gonna have to take it outside of Asia and move into some stories I've heard from other countries as well. Yes, I have been to other countries other than Japan. And I hope you don't mind me taking a step outside of Asia today, but the scariness will continue. These stories, I hope, are just as scary as any of the Asian ones you've heard. I'm going to start out first with one, just a small American country town, and my friend who worked at a pizza place there. It was just a mom and pop owned one. It wasn't one of these big chain stores like Papa John's or Domino's or anything like that. It was just a small mom and pop owned pizza store. They delivered pizzas, they made pizzas, people ate in there, but they also did pretty far deliveries because it was the countryside. People live pretty spaced out. So usually, I don't know how many of you have worked pizza delivery jobs, but you've got a pretty small space in which you deliver to if you're part of a chain, because they've got areas that they'll only deliver to so that their drivers aren't going insane distances. But for this guy kind of had to sometimes do that, go kind of really far out of his way to get to a delivery. So this time, the same type of thing happened. His shift was about to end. The shop was going to close around 11 p.m. Kind of early for a pizza shop, but it's the countryside. So he gets his last order, they send him out, and it's a place he's never heard of before. They're like, yeah, it's here on the map. He's looking it up. He's like, okay, I can't really find this. This is before GPS existed, so he didn't have a GPS in his car. He didn't have a smartphone. This is back when we had like our gray flip phones. You know, they look like a brick. And so he's like, all right, I'm gonna have to try and do the best that I can. He said it took him a long time to find this place because it was like literally out in the middle of the woods. He's driving on the main road, has to get off from that, drive down one of those roads that's only covered with like rocks and gravel and stuff like that. He gets out there, it is literally like a trailer in the middle of the woods. And when he goes out to look at this trailer, it's already a creepy scene. It's super dark, of course. There's nothing but a small porch light lighting the place up, and it's not even like bright white light or even yellow. It's like this dingy orange color because it's just so old and looks like it's not even getting enough electricity, flickering and stuff. Perfect horror movie-esque type scene. Walks up there, knocks on the front door, no answer. You can hear movement inside, and it sounds like people or someone moving around, so he's like, okay, definitely there's somebody here. I didn't come to the wrong house. He checks the address again, matches the pizza box. If you don't know, you have your address on a sticker on the pizza box. And so he's like, all right, what the hell, gotta find another entrance to this place. Maybe this isn't the front door. Walks around to the back and finds like a patio. It's like laid concrete with some patio chairs on it, the really cheap plastic ones that you can get at Walmart back in the garden section. They're just like white plastic that if you bend the legs too hard, they'll probably break off. And he said, that's all there is back there, is just this plastic furniture on the patio that's all dirty and grungy. And in one of the chairs with his back to him is like a large man sitting there with his head slightly like slumped over like this, like looking like maybe he's taking a nap or something, or you know, like waiting outside late at night and kind of caught a few Z's because he got tired. And so he's kind of like, hey, pizza pizza delivery, trying to get his attention. You know, he doesn't know. He's like, I don't know, is this guy maybe asleep or something, or like, do I need to wake him up, or do I need to shout a little bit louder, or should I tap on his shoulder, because he can't even see if the guy is asleep. But he said the guy's not stirring, he's not moving at all, like his body is just sitting absolutely motionless in this chair with his back to him. And he's like, damn, what the hell do I do? He's like, well, maybe I should just check if he is sleeping, and I'll like kind of shake him awake and try to get my money. And so he starts to walk closer to like get up to the body of this guy that's sitting in the chair, and the guy's not dead. All right, I'm not gonna like surprise you like, oh, he turns around, the guy's all dead and nasty. He's getting up closer to this guy's body that's sitting in the chair, and as he does, he said around the corner of the trailer, a guy comes out and says, hey, kid. And like, you know, like if someone comes around a corner, right, they dip their head around the corner like this. Well, you gotta watch the screen just for a second. I know you usually listen to audio, but watch. So if you come around the corner, you dip your head around like you say, hey kid, come here. Hey, come here. But he said this guy didn't come out around the corner like this, like an angle this way. He said the guy came out like almost like a 45-degree angle. He came out like as if somehow his body was like floating to the side and came out like up to about like his torso. And he was like, hey kid, come here, I want to show you something. Hey, come here, I want to show you something. And he said, I do not understand like how this guy was coming out from that angle, because he would have had to either been using like pulleys or cables that I couldn't see, or like floating somehow with some kind of like lever device. He said, I don't get it. He said it freaked me out so bad I threw the pizza on the patio table and ran back to my car. And luckily for him, his boss, the owners of those little mom and pop shop he worked at, were pretty nice. They're just like, you know, it was probably some kind of ruse. Probably that guy was gonna get you back there and just try to take your money. So it's best you just ran and left the pizza. They didn't charge him for his pizza or anything like that. You know, they didn't make him pay for his own. It's a mom and pop shop, and they trusted. And he told him the story. He was like, yeah, it's probably just some guys trying to just steal some money from you. Some guys trying to surround you and maybe take your money. Let's never go to that house. Then they like marked it off on the map. He said they put an X over it that they wouldn't deliver there anymore because it's considered a dangerous spot to deliver to. But he said it really made no sense. He said he didn't have a feeling like it was like some kind of gang-related thing where a gang was going to jump him and take his money. He said it was just like insane, creepy. Like he just said he got a whole feeling of just dread and got the hell out of there. That story, I call it pizza deliverance. You like that? You see what I did there? Next one, upside down face. Now this is a story that steps outside of America and Asia. And actually steps into a country probably not a lot of people hear about, Herzegovina and Medjugorje. Probably two countries you probably, if you have heard about it, then you're well studied, my friend. Why am I talking about those countries? Well, that's a very good question. I went to Catholic school for 12 years of my life, and during my junior year of Catholic high school, a man came to our school and offered to help us raise money if we wanted to travel to Medjugorje to meet supposedly these 10 people who, when they were kids, Jesus Christ had come to them. Oh no, I'm sorry, not Jesus Christ. Mary, the Mother Mary, had shown up to them and told them 10 secrets about Catholicism or something like that. Later I'd come to realize as I got older it's totally, you know, hooky spooky bullshit, but back then I was like, really? That's pretty wild. Like, you know, I'm always into like the paranormal type stuff and everything, whether I believe it or not, which most times I don't believe any of it. I'm still interested. Like if someone was like, hey, you want to go to a place where supposedly like deities and gods have come down and talked to people and patron saints have talked to people, yeah, sure, let's go. This guy was really nice. I got to give him that. He took really good care of us. He was really well-to-do, and pretty much all he did was he said, come up with as much money as you can to go on the trip and I'll cover the rest. This is how awesome this guy was that he did that. So whether you believe the stuff that he said goes on there or not, I've got to say the man was full of altruism and was ready to help pay for anybody who wanted to go, even if they couldn't afford it. And that's what he did. Like, he covered quite a bit of the costs. He took really good care of us while we were there. But while we were there, we were wandering around the town, because each day you'd walk out and like it was such a weird setting where this supposed miracle, quote unquote, took place when we got to Medjugorje. It was this tiny little town that had become a tourist spot. So we had this really nice hotel that we were staying in while we were there. And as soon as you got outside of the hotel, like there was a goat farm. It was like countryside. It was like, you know, like bellowing goats and all this, you know, very country-esque type stuff with these small little tiny shops that were just like mom and pop run shops that were just like, it looked like they just scraped together stuff that they had found in their house and tried to sell it in the store. It was like that kind of stuff. It was a really interesting setting. We would just like wake up. I remember we had to go to church in the morning every day that we were at this place, which was a bit much for me. Sometimes it got pretty boring. But as soon as we would finish church, which was only like 1 hour, we would just wander around this town. And one time we were just wandering around this town until we ended up getting into the border of the next town. Now, something you should realize about this area is it borders on former Yugoslavia, Bosnia, and those whole areas were like extremely war-torn around this time. It was like 1995 or 6, around that time that I went there. and this place was just like leveled, like just destroyed. Like, for example, we went on a tour of 2 towns down of what the area was like, because there was a bunch of Franciscan monks who lived there. And during the tour, like, the tour guide just like told us this horrible tragedy after tragedy. He's like, yes, do you see this foundation over here? Here my father's throat slit in front of me. Over here, mother and baby shot by sniper rifle. Like, and you're just like, Jesus Christ, man, like, this place is dark. And I mean, pretty much only the religion had gotten them through a lot of it. I guess good for them that they could pull through that, because that was like, they must have been living in utter hell. That's the only way I can put it. So, you know, and you know, I'm not trying to make light of their situation by any means, please. That's not the intent of this story. So we go over to this town, we walk over to this town that's like 1 town over, and the first thing that catches my eye is this really cool shop that looks like, you know, one of those shops that like sells Halloween stuff all year round, or like Christmas stuff all year round. Well, that's what like it looked like this was. It was like a Halloween looking shop, and I was like, oh man, this is cool. There's like masks and everything in here, and like kind of crazy looking ritual stuff and things. And of course there's no Halloween out in this area. No one celebrates Halloween here. But this place just had masks. They weren't like elaborate, you know, hand-carved ritual masks or anything. These were like cheap little plastic jobs that probably had a billion million of them printed for 5 cents in China and then sold for $1 in this tiny town. And they were selling them, and the reason it caught my eye was because these masks were just of like demons and monsters I had never heard of, never seen. You know, they didn't exist in any kind of fantasy books I had in America. Like, these were original to their small town, like these really tiny, like very, very niche demons and esoteric monsters of this area. And so I was like, man, I want to go check these out. So I go in there, I'm looking around, and like, one thing that kind of was weird was like, there were little kids, they'd come into the shop and just play with anything anytime they wanted to, and the shop owner was kind of like this old, like, I don't want to say Russian, because he's obviously not Russian when we're in Medjugorje, but that's what I thought of. I thought of like your most stereotypical looking Russian guy in a movie who's got like, you know, like the old-timey like newspaper salesman cap on, a red vest with like a white collared shirt, and like, you know, just like old-timey Russian that doesn't really exist. It's kind of stereotypical. But this is what the guy looked like. He had a pipe, you know, really, really like movie-esque. And he was letting the kids just play with everything in this shop, and they'd put the masks on and run around and try to scare each other and stuff. But one thing I thought was like really goofy was like, every kid who put on a mask, when they put it on, they didn't put it on like, you know, the normal way you would. You'd put a mask on, your eyes can look through the holes here, and your mouth can breathe. They would put it on upside down, so like they would look through the mouth part and like breathe through the eye holes. And like, at first I just thought it was one kid being kind of goofy messing around, but then I noticed like all of them put on the masks like that. They put them on upside down. And I remember like the one kid came up to me and was like, boo, and trying to scare me, and I was like, it's not really scary because you don't even have the mask on, right? He kind of flipped it around. And the store owner kind of laughed, and I was like, what's so funny? He's like, no, this is the way that they wear them here. And I was like, what do you mean, like upside down? He's like, yes, everybody wear a mask upside down. And I was like, well, is there like a reason behind that? He's like, yes, very dark reason. And I was like, story? Because let's be honest, the way I gather all these stories is as soon as I hear someone say it's a dark reason or a dark story or a scary story, I'm like, can I hear a tale? Like, can I add this to my register in my mind? And he's like, well, a long time ago, this village, everyone killed. Soldiers come in, kill everybody, shoot, stab, murder. And they not done after people die. To bring shame to family, they cut off everybody's skin on face, turn around and sew back on upside down. Sometimes place is called upside down face or turn face village. So from now on it is considered very scary to put mask on upside down like the dead bodies that were in this town before. I was just like, holy shit, that's dark as hell. And now it's just become kind of like a scary Halloween playtime thing. So wow. And that was like, if you ask, I remember we went back to like our hotel and everything, we told them where we went, and they're like, oh, you went to Upside Down Face? And like, we're like, oh shit, that's just like the name everybody says. They call it like Upside Down Face Village. And they're like, yeah, it's dark, right? And I'm like, oh my god. So, humanity, the scariest monster that ever existed. Okay, here's our last story. And this one's just called Barrel Eater, alright? And you'll see why I call it this later. And this one goes back to America. This goes back to the countryside of America once again, with country bumpkins. But this one's way farther back. It's like 1950s America. And this was actually told to me by my uncle's friend on my mother's side, and it was pretty much his friend's father, which would be like almost like about the age of my own grandfather if he was still alive, which would be very old, like past 90 at this point. Closing in on 100, so nearly 100. Probably. Well, I mean, the guy would have been like, I guess he was like 30, no, 20, 18, high school age kids. Yeah, long time ago. Okay, sorry, I'm not gonna do the math right now in my head to try and figure out how many years ago this was. That's 1950s. All right. America. A group of friends from school want to go camping because it's the end of their school year. This is kind of like the last blast, like end of our high school year. We're all going to go off and start jobs because no, they didn't go to college usually back then. That wasn't as common. What was more common was go work at the lumber mill or the steel mill, which was close to their town. But they were going to go their separate ways pretty much. And they were like, for last thing that we're going to do is go ahead and go camping at our favorite log cabin that one of their dads owned. They would go there pretty much for any big celebration. That's what they did back then. There wasn't, you know, have a Xbox or LAN party or something like that. It was go camping and hoot and holler, get a bunch of alcohol, get drunk. You know, the cops aren't going to come out there and bother us because we're in a log cabin, not disturbing anyone. We can be as crazy and as drunk as we want. They'd also do stuff like, you know, bring guns and go out hunting during the day. That wasn't a big deal back then. Yes, kids back then learned how to shoot guns really early. I remember even my dad telling me when he was like 10 or 11, he found his first BB gun and was able to shoot his first BB gun, and then 22 next, and 9mm next. And so this is the kind of area of the town it was where like guns were like, everybody had a bunch because a lot of times even their food source came from hunting and stuff. So they brought guns out there to go hunting for things like pheasant and stuff like that, and that's more kind of like game hunting, so you can mount it later, you know, shoot elk and stuff like that, so you can mount the antlers and stuff later. You know, I guess typical stuff for kind of jock-like guys back in the 1950s. And that's what they did. They went out there, they hunted a little bit during the day, they had some fun, killed some stuff, brought it back. I think some of the stuff they could even grill up and eat. And then, you know, cracked open a few beers. Back then I think it was probably all bottles. I don't think there was as many cans. And they're chugging beers and getting wasted. And one of them starts talking about how their dad came back, when he came back from the war, that he was all messed up and used to like get really depressed because he had PTSD, and that one of the scariest things he would do was sometimes find his dad with his service pistol, or I don't know, if it might not have been a service pistol because I don't know exactly how that would have worked, but he had a pistol and it was a revolver. And he would be playing Russian roulette with his friends. And it really scared him. And he said it was because of the war had all messed him up. And now I don't know much about PTSD. I don't think everybody who has PTSD would do something like this. And mind you, this is a story from 1950s. People didn't know how to address anything back then. They didn't even understand PTSD back then. So this guy might have had no fucking clue what he's talking about. Just go with the fact that it's a story for entertainment value. It's not for me trying to evaluate psychological situations. So he's all screwed up. He said his dad would drink all the time and play Russian roulette with his friends, and it would scare him. He'd be like, "Dad, stop." And then his dad would be like, "Look, son, there's no bullets in the chamber. I'm just fucking around with my friends." And so he'd be like, "Oh, okay, whatever, like, but that's fucked up." And like all his friends were like, "Yeah, man, that's really fucked up. Like, why would your dad do that and stuff?" And they had one friend who was always there. His name was Jerry, and he said Jerry was always kind of like this boastful guy who'd always be like, "Well, you may think that you're strong, but I'm a hell of a lot stronger. You know, one of those type of guys that, like, no matter what you've done, he's got a story of how he's done it better. So once again, this is a time for that guy to talk up, and he's like, man, anybody who can't play Russian roulette is a pussy. You know, like, he's one of those kind of guys. So he's got to be like, everything everybody can't do that I can do is a pussy, because I'm awesome, and I've got to constantly look for appreciation from everyone in the room to build my own very, very low self-esteem. So yeah, it's one of those type of guys. Obviously he didn't actually say stuff like that, but he did say this dickish stuff of like, whatever, Russian roulette, if you can't play that, you're a pussy. And of course the other guys in the room back then in the 1950s, no one was gonna back down from. They're gonna be like, hey man, fuck you, dude, like, we're just as tough as you are, Jerry. That's more how it would have been. Like, probably these days people are like, yeah, they're a pussy for almost blowing the rain out, you're an idiot, bye. But back then it was like, we're men, we're man's man, we can do fucking Russian roulette, give me that goddamn revolver. So that, well, at least that's how these country bumpkin dudes were. It was always about like who can more up the other guy as far as how manly they were. And so right away the other guys shot back like, fuck you, dude, man, I could, you know, I could definitely play Russian roulette, I could handle it. And he's like, nah, you guys are all pussies, probably only I could play, I have to play by myself, but of course I lose because eventually I'm gonna spin the barrel on that bullet and get myself. Look, we already got 5 of you other guys out here. If all 6 of us play together, we're gonna have a pretty good game, and you all can stop being pussies. And of course the whole time they're throwing back beers, you know, getting their bravado stronger and stronger, shouting down at each other, being like, whatever, I can fucking do it, yeah, I'm the man, I can do it. You know, obviously they had 1950s stuff to say. Instead of I'm the man, they'd be like, golly gee willikers, that's not keen. I don't know how they would talk back then. I'm gonna show him just how sharp I can be. I don't know how they talked back then. So that's how it was. Like, they were drinking their beer and having a bit of a hootenanny, and finally it came down to the point where they're like, all right, we're gonna do this. They sat down at the table all together that they were drinking alcohol at. Now at this time, you know, they're like a bajillion beers deep, they're drunk off of moonshine, they're wasted. And so they start playing this. They're spinning the barrel, boom, nothing goes, spinning the barrel, boom, goes around. They're feeling invincible, man. He said his dad's friend at the time was talking about how, like, yeah, this really did feel manly and everything, and that they would all just laugh and every time the gun would click. And then of course it got around to Jerry one time. Finally he spun it, and then suddenly there was like, it wasn't like kaboom like in the movies where it's like pew, 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 pew. Like when a gun, and especially a big revolver, fires. For those of you who've never shot a gun before, it's loud, okay? If you shot a gun right next to your face, your ears would ring, like, for minutes on end. Like, you'd probably lose some of your hearing if you did it. Maybe temporary loss at the very least. And they said exactly what it was. It was like a flash, smoke, and a boom so loud that, like, for a second no one in the room could ask, even be like, what just happened? Because it was just like, and they said Jerry, like, they expected to look over and just see Jerry's face blown off, but it wasn't, of course. Like, it's not how it happens in the movie. Just take your whole fucking face off. They just said, like, smoke was coming out of, like, his nose and his mouth, and like just trickles, just starting to trickle blood down the side. And they said he stood up, like, real wobbly, like, you know, and you know, they were drunk at the time too, so no one was like really quick, like, oh shit, we gotta call 911, which didn't exist back then. They were just all kind of like drunk, like, oh shit, what just happened? And Jerry stood up and he's like, I gotta get some fresh air. They said he could, like, still talk. Like, many people probably don't know this, but when someone actually does kill themselves with a gun, the most efficient way to actually kill yourself with a gun, and please, if you're feeling suicidal or something, don't make any stupid decisions because of this video. Alright, go stop this video right now, go call a suicide helpline, or message me and talk to me about it, or someone, and, you know, let's live until tomorrow. Like, don't commit suicide. But the best way, supposedly, is to shoot behind your ear here. That's the quickest and most efficient way to commit suicide. So even if you do shoot yourself in the mouth with the gun, a lot of times people don't die. They end up just like blowing out the back here, or like coming through the side of their neck. And so there's smoke pouring out of Jerry's neck and smoke pouring out of his face and his nostril. And he's like, I gotta get some fresh air. They said he could still talk. It was kind of like this kind of slurred speech, you know, half drunk, half like disabled mouth talk. And they said he walked to the door, opened the door, and started walking into the woods, like on a path. And they were just like, wait, you should stay and get some help. But they're all like drunk, so like all moving in slow motion at this time. It's not like one of those things like, oh shit. Like they're all just like, oh man, that can't be good. Let's go check them out. So they all get up slowly from the table and they're like, Jerry? Jerry? And they're all like looking around drunk. They're idiots at this time. I mean, the way they should have handled this is, at the very least, if they didn't have a phone nearby, jumped into the car, drove back to the nearest phone they could find, call, you know, the hospital to come pick Jerry up and take him. But they're just like, oh shit, where'd Jerry go? And they said like they followed some footprints for a bit, but they disappeared into the woods. There was like some blood trail. And they said they kind of searched as long as they could through the night, and eventually all of them kind of just passed out from like exhaustion and like drinking too much alcohol. Woke up the next day and they'd kind of like all forgotten about it. Like they were like, was this just like a bad dream, or like something fucked up? And they realized Jerry was still missing. So right away they hop into the car. They're finally thinking clearly. They drive to the nearest, like, you know, general store, call the cops, call the ambulance, call the hospital. All this, you know, everybody comes out looking for him, trying to find him. They never find this guy. They never ever find Jerry. So apparently this guy had shot himself in the face, totally fucked up on alcohol and obviously blood loss and the damage he had just taken, stumbled out into the woods just thinking he needed a breath of fresh air. I don't know, I guess like his insides were feeling hot. And who knows what happened, probably just like kept wandering out into the woods until like he collapsed and died, or an animal ate him because he was bleeding out, and probably everything within a huge radius could smell his blood. They never found this guy. They never found his body. They never even found bones or anything. And that was the tale. And the reason it was called Barrel Eater, which I totally forgot to mention, was that this guy Jerry supposedly is like, it ain't called Russian roulette, it's called Barrel Eater. We ain't Russians. Apparently he's like one of those like, these colors don't run type of guys. R.I.P. Jerry. Best of luck with your situation in the woods. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed those 3 scary stories. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you enjoyed this type of Osoroshii Saturday, let me know by sharing this video so more people view it, and the more people that view it, the more I'm inspired to make more of these. Until next time, I'm Unrested. This was Osoroshii Saturday. Sweet dreams.